Hello, you guys. How are you all? Thank you guys for being here. So, today we started the review of the Isaiah Ross trial. We're a couple days behind, but it's pretty shocking. This trial isn't really being covered on court TV, law and crime, anywhere. And it's just not a topic of conversation. And I think it should be. So I'm reviewing the trial here. It's not what I usually do. I have a friend. I'm going to drop her link. She does a lot of trials and she does an excellent job. But because it is important to me, I'm going to do it. I will also be covering other cases throughout our time reviewing the trial. Stuff that, if you're not interested in this, you might have an interest in one of those. But I'm doing this from start to finish. And that's just that. So, I said earlier, even if there's only 5 people here that care to listen to it, I'm going to play all of it. And actually, this is not far from me. I went to the memorial site for, that was actually the crime scene we're learning for this case. And I went with a couple friends of mine, Decipher Podcast and Incognito Gypsy. And I hope that Decipher Podcast and I will have some conversations on this once the trial is over. Hey, Remy. So, I don't think notifications will go out. Neat. Will you do me a favor and drop this in the Discord for the channel? I have a Discord for members of the channel and the Patreon. If you're interested and you're a member, you can shoot me an email and I'll give you the link. But this is the cross exam, of Investigator Baldwin. But before we get into it, I just wanted to do like a very, very quick and not detailed, really, recap of a couple things we learned this morning. So the judge is Stephanie Reese, the DA is Anna Orr, and the public defender or defense attorney is Jonathan Trapp. Isaiah Ross was 17 at the time, and he's being accused of shooting and killing Devin Clark, who was 18, and Jordan Woods, who was 14. Why do I say Jordan Woods? I don't know why I did that. I'm so sorry. Lyric Woods. That's a celebrity name that I keep doing that. I don't think I've done it on the channel, but I've done it like talking to my friends and family a couple times now. So please forgive me. Lyric. Now, Lyric's blood was on the exterior of his vehicle. We learned that today in the opening. They found 12 shell casings in 3 separate groups. Devin was shot 7 times, including in the back of his head and in his back, and Lyric 6 times, including in her neck and in her back. But the defendant and his attorney are claiming that this was self-defense, even though evidence kind of points to them being shot while running away, trying to get away, and then being dragged to a slightly different location in the same location. They were shot with Devin's dad's gun that Devin used when they would go shooting, and that gun has never been recovered, as well as Devin's cell phone. So I'm really curious why the phone? Why did he think the phone? But then, of course, the defense got up and they claimed that the person who shot Lyric was not Isaiah, but Devin Clark. Isaiah was so upset, he ran into a gas pump after the shooting, like into the concrete at a gas pump. And apparently, according to the defense, that's the reason he left state. It wasn't because he was running from a crime he committed. No, his mom was so upset that he ran into the gas pump. She was like, you got to go. Then we heard from Devin's dad, Dexter, and that was just heartbreaking. I think you should watch it. All I have to say about that is my heart goes out to him, and I'm so sorry. And as well as Lyric's mom. That was also really hard to watch. We did hear that someone sent them her Snapchat location from where she was sending it to Devin, and I have a lot of questions about that. Then Investigator Baldwin comes up, and we're about to hear the cross. But we learned that about the luminol he did on the 2017 GMC that belonged to Isaiah's mom. There was blood on the outside of the vehicle, but also on the inside, there was a splatter and like a handprint on the roof. Maybe not a splatter. Maybe that's the wrong, like a stain. and a handprint on the roof with they actually cut that out, and I'd be curious to hear the results of that. This wasn't visible to the naked eye, but once they put luminol on it, they could see it. Then it came up in in the direct that in June of 2024, they had to go to the jail to complete an SA kit. They needed 30 hair samples of Issiah. And that is where we're at. So now we're going to start with where we left off. Hey, Coffee and Skeletons. Hey, Boho Hobo. I'm out of the bushes. Listen, thank you for being here. I am kind of devastated and heartbroken. Maybe not devastated, just like sad and heartbroken because as someone who has talked about so many cases, some have got tons of attention. I mean, think about Letitia's calls. There would be so many people just waiting to hear what shit she said next. And it's just very sad that like nobody seems to have interest in hearing what happened to these kids. And I'm not really even talking about like YouTubers. I'm talking about Law and Crime, Court TV, Dateline, 48 Hours, Netflix, Peacock, hell, even Lifetime likes to jump on, the big ones. So thank you for being here. And like I said, I will be covering other cases throughout this, but part of me thought I should do like a private stream to go over the trial footage with like Discord or members or something, and then make it public at the end so it's memorialized if people want to see it. But I don't know. I don't think that's the way I'm going to do it, but I've thought about it. Okay, so let's jump into this cross-exam of Investigator Baldwin and the redirect. Now, I'm excited to see this because I didn't watch this part. I haven't seen much from his attorney, but what I have seen, he seems, extremely competent. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. Dropped my pen. All right, so let's get into this. Here we go.
That is all the questions I have for Investigator Baldwin. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Investigator Baldwin.
Good afternoon.
Looks like you're the star of the show this afternoon.
Apparently so.
You mentioned that you started in this position as
HA13.
a collector of evidence and maintaining of evidence for the Orange County Sheriff's Department around 2020. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so prior to that, taking that responsibility, what was your role at the Orange County Sheriff's Office?
So I was originally hired and I spent about a year working in the jail as a detention officer. After that, I got my chance to go to BLET and become a patrol deputy. I did that for about 5 years, was an SRO, then an investigator, and then I took over this position.
And when you took over this position, you mentioned you had to take classes in education in order to accomplish these goals and fulfill these responsibilities. What classes and certifications did you get in order to perform these duties? So
it was a list of classes that I gave earlier, like tool marks and impression, basic crime scene, advanced crime scene photography, search and seizure, interview and interrogation, classes like that.
And did you take these in 2020 or just over the course of your career?
I've taken them over the course of my career.
And then do you have to recertify or kind of relearn things as they change over time? Is there something you have to update on a regular basis?
Not really something you have to update. You can take the same class more than once to get updates, or you can subscribe to like evidence journals, the property and evidence.
So Coffee had asked, she missed who are they waiting to hear about? And then I know J13 had missed some during the last live. This is the cross of his direct examination. Again, the only thing that was like at the end that we were talking about that you may have missed was about this SA kit. So they asked him at the end, what happened in June of 2024? And he said, I was contacted by the state lab. They needed some hairs of Issiah to complete an SA kit. And they needed 30 hairs plucked from the head with the root intact. So he went to the jail and Issiah plucked them himself. And That is all we know. So we learned about certain tests that were done, like the car and the crime scene and the SA kit, but we have not gotten the results yet. And I think that will be when we have, people that work at the state lab and the medical examiner and things like that. So
Association of North Carolina, places like
it's
that.
kind of part
to
of
get
the
updates.
process.
Now, some jurisdictions, some law enforcement
Kimberly.
agencies, when there's a homicide or a big, we'll say a big case, they may call in someone from the SBI to actually do what you do. Is that right?
Sometimes smaller agencies that don't have enough resources will often call in the SBI.
But in
Thank
this
you,
instance, this is kind of
Kimberly.
your role. And then if items need to be tested, you may in turn send it to a lab at the SBI. Is that right?
Who's
After
Tyler?
collected.
J13.
That's correct. The North Carolina Crime Lab is separate from the SBI now. But yes, so my job is to collect and process the scene.
Oh wow. Okay,
And then
that's kind of
I do very
interesting.
minimal testing. If something needs to be fingerprinted, I may do that. But any of your very in-depth stuff, your DNA, things like that, I'm sending to the crime lab and let their experts do that.
And I apologize, I meant the crime lab, not the SBI.
Yeah, that's
In this
Huh,
case, did you
interesting.
yourself test any of the items that were collected?
no, I did not test any of the items in this case.
Hey,
So on September
MFW.
18th, 2022, you were called on the scene. And I think you mentioned the first officer, you talked to an officer to get an idea of what you're looking for or what happened. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I think you said you talked to Officer Suzanne, and you may have talked about other people, but that's who you mentioned today.
It's more than likely Suzanne, if he was the first one on scene. It could have been his supervisor. I know sometimes supervisors will step in.
And then after you kind of get this, we'll say summary of what you're going to walk into, you then in turn kind of walk the scene to figure out how you're going to approach this and what tools you need in order to identify and collect things. Is that right?
That's correct. I walk through and start identifying evidence and determine my equipment.
And then you mentioned you took pictures
Keyboard.
of the scene prior to and then maybe after placards were put down.
Yes, there were pictures taken during the processing.
And then you mentioned you did a Faro scan, and that was like almost like a 3D look of the scene. Is that right?
That's correct. It takes, I said 360 earlier. It's really 540, but of course, above the camera doesn't really matter. It's just clouds in the sun. But yes, we did use that.
And you had an opportunity to go over
540.
some of these pictures with the jury that walked them through kind of what the area would look like from the street, which would be Buckhorn, making its way to the crime scene. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then you talked about how the number of placards, I think it was maybe 1 to 21, that was on that scene outside near Buckhorn. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, when you talked about the method of searching for items, particularly when you knew that there would be shell casings or the brass items that were on the ground,
What's
you
he
said
getting
that
to
you and
here?
maybe some other officers would kind of walk this gravel road together, kind of looking for these shiny objects. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one way to process it. Yes.
And, it was somewhat difficult because these brass items were around the same size as the rocks and might even been a similar color. Is that fair to say?
Not necessarily a similar color. They appear more gold, brass gold, but same size or smaller. Absolutely.
Now, did you use any apparatus like a magnet or a metal detector or anything to look and see that you actually identified everything that was in those areas?
So no, magnet would not work generally with shell casings, especially in the tall grass. Mostly we just did it with what we found with our eye.
And there were some items that were in the gravel. There were some items in the grass. Were there items that were found, we'll say later on, after you did one walkthrough and two walkthroughs?
Yeah. So yes, I believe I know what you're at. Yes, there was the following day. There was another shell casing located that was turned in. It's one that we missed that they happened to see when we went back out there.
After this shell casing that was found the next day that was missed, did you yourself or any other officers go back and see if there was anything else that had been missed that you
Shell
did not see with
casing
the
that
naked eye?
was missed. I
We
heard about that.
Are you asking if we did a walkthrough again?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we did a walkthrough again, trying to make sure we had not missed anything. We missed the first shell case.
Okay. And did you use any other additional apparatus or item to help you verify that you hadn't missed anything, or was this just a search with the naked eye again?
It's just a search with the naked eye.
And you said that item was found by someone else. Does that mean it was turned into you like at the evidence department after the fact?
Yes, it would have been submitted that way.
And do you recall, or did you ever observe this to see if it was a Winchester or an RP, or if it was the same color? Did you yourself ever kind of look at it yourself to verify if it was similar to what was found the day before on the 18th?
I would have looked at it, I'm sure, to determine if it was the same caliber.
And then would the initials on this item, since it was found by someone else, be different than the items that were found on the 18th because it was, I guess, packaged by someone else?
Originally, no, remember earlier I testified if they have issues with the size of the bags, sometimes it has to be repackaged to be submitted to the crime lab. So in this case, when it was submitted, it had to be repackaged to go to the crime lab. The crime lab has specific requirements on the size of the packaging they will take based on the stickers that they put on now. They will no
What
longer
neat.
accept anything smaller than
The magnets. Do.
approximately 9x5. Most of the envelopes you've seen today.
Okay, just pausing for a second because I had asked Neat for what, but just so you're if you're just listening and maybe tattooing or something else, I can help fill you in. So J13 had said a magnet, and Nate said they actually do use them frequently, and he said they can't be used for shell casings, which why? But what do they use them for? I'm curious. And then hey, Tess. Right, brass isn't going to hit on a magnet. That makes sense. Okay. Let's keep listening. Hey, well, I just said hey to you. My brain is, listen, scrambled like an egg, okay? Right now, I'm all over the place. Here we
You
go.
mentioned after you kind of walked the scene and started marking things that the medical examiner arrived. You remember that?
Yes,
And you said typically when that happens, you'll kind of stop what you're doing to assist the medical examiner in their needs, and then you may go back to doing your typical job. Is that?
that's correct. My job generally takes several hours. The medical examiner is not there nearly as long as I am. And sometimes stuff I need to do will hold them up. So I do what has to be done before they get there, then stop and help them, and then finish my job.
One of the things you mentioned on your testimony is that when you were helping the medical examiner kind of pull up the pants legs and the shirts and examine the injuries, that it was hard for you to determine the entry and exit wounds on the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, one moment. When you were talking about the position of the bodies that were on the scene, you mentioned that
Remember,
there were obviously
before we even hear it, remember, the footage,
there was the
oh gosh, why is this up? The footage, I'm going to refresh it.
I do what has to be done before they get there, then stop and help them, and then finish my job.
one of the things you mentioned on your testimony is that when you were helping the medical examiner kind of pull up the pants legs and the shirts and examine the
Okay. Now I'm forgetting what the hell I was even going to say. I'm sorry, y'all. Hopefully it'll come back to me. Oh, yeah. The footage, what they're talking about now, I don't believe we were able to hear it all because remember, as soon as the news started recording, this very live here, or this, yeah, it was a live, I think. It's in the middle of conversation about discovering the bodies. We didn't really get those details. I do feel like we get them in other places. And one of the videos I was watching definitely talked about it some in the first day or two of trial. So I don't know. That's why, the very beginning of this is going to be a bit rocky and kind of hard to piece together because we've got a clip here, a clip there, a clip of this opening, a clip of that opening statement, the parents. And so now, in the one video that I could find that had this full day, had no audio. Remember, we tried it earlier. So now whatever he's going to talk about their positioning, I don't even know. We don't know the details of that. So we'll just try to learn as we go, I guess. But just to point that out, that's why you might not recognize certain things he's talking about, or it might be the first time you've heard it, even though it's a cross exam of the first direct. It's because we didn't hear it all.
injuries, that it was hard for you to determine the entry and exit wounds on the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, one moment. When you were talking about the position of the bodies that were on the scene, you mentioned that there was the markings of red stains that led up to where the bodies were. But then you mentioned that there were larger red stains in between the bodies. Do you recall that?
That's correct. They show up in the photographs.
I heard this because we skipped over the photograph part. That's why we didn't hear it today, because the audio was so terrible anyways. But I have already listened to it prior to this, so let me explain what they're talking about. So there were red stains that appeared to be blood that were not right next to the body, that seemed like either they were moved or they had been running. I don't know. It wasn't right next to the bodies. It was a little bit of ways, like closer to the gravel. But Jordan and Devin were side by side, parallel to each other, on their backs, arms spread out, toes up. I'm sorry, this is graphic, but it's important and the details matter. In one of the photos, there was a big pool of blood in between the two of them, or what appeared to be blood, because they can't say for certain because they didn't test it. He said, I was kind of confused on this. Didn't test the big pool. I got to write this down so I don't forget next time, because I forgot about this until they got going. He said because of the proximity to the body, it was obviously blood, right? Like that's kind of the point he made, my words. He did say because of the proximity to the kids. But there was a giant puddle in between the two of them that appeared to be blood, wasn't sure, and did not test it. So that's what he's talking about here. And again, like I said, they were laying beside of each other, parallel, arms out and toes up. When there's part of the body cam where she tries to skip past the graphic part, where you can see them laying there. You can see them. You don't see details. It's kind of blurry, but you can see like two figures like side by side. Very sad. And the only other detail is, Lyric had hair all over her face, so you couldn't exactly see who she was, even though the people who were first called to the scene knew her. And she was later identified by necklaces and a mole pattern on her face, and they point that out in the pictures. And then they point out in another picture, it's a close-up of Devin's face, and that was for identification purposes later, if they found a picture that they could compare. Why didn't they test? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I guess because they just assumed, obviously, it's blood. But I think it was important. Whose was it? Was it a mixture? Was it from one of them and one of them bled more somewhere else? It leaves too many holes. You know what I mean? And we're going to see what the defense attorney has to say about it. But I just feel like it leaves holes for them to pick at. So I think that was the only details. It's so sad. It's so sad. Like where you do see their bodies for a split second. I'm not going to show that. Would never show that. But you can see his hand. And it's just like, it's still blurry, but you can detail that there's fingers. And he was still a baby to me. It's so sad. It's so heartbreaking and sad. And that's what makes me even more mad. That people don't give a fuck. They don't care. They want to watch the same drama 10 times over or care about something else. Like or some other case that, whatever. He's the same age as my son. 1 year older, if that. Going out with his friends. Football player. Good kid. Bullshit.
And you said that you tested the smaller trails and even gave them evidence markers, but that you did not test the larger markers. Is there a reason why you didn't test these if you believe that they were suspected blood?
Yes. So a number of factors went into that decision. The rocks in the gravel driveway were small amounts far from the body. So reason we tested those, collected those and tested those was to confirm that it was blood related to this case. Because the bodies had been in the location they were in the photographs for so long, my concern was body fluid or anything from the bodies running out because of the wounds, because of the time that had passed, because of the decay, would interfere with samples we took from those stains, and they may or may not give us an accurate result.
Well, when we're talking about testing for DNA, for example, the amount that was there would have been enough to test to see who, if any, that came from. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely could have been enough to tell you who it came from. Like I said, my concern was fluids leaking from the body, contaminating it.
Wow.
And so that was a decision that you made, or did you reach out to an investigator or sergeant and see if you should not take that just in case?
No, that's a decision that I made.
And there were items
Hold
that
on.
you took for
Well, dumb decision. You know, Investigator Baldwin, you'll never hear this, but let me tell you how it is. I like you, but that was not smart. Please don't do that again. Please next time, just in case. So there's not a hole that can be poked from, just please. Why not be thorough and make sure you have all of the information that could ever potentially be needed?
evidence like or marked as evidence like
Please.
the vape pen and the cigarette butt that was close to the street. Even though they may not be relevant, you still mark them. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That's correct.
And oftentimes when you're at crime scenes, you take and pull things
I
just
agree
in
with
case you might need them down the
attorney.
road.
I'm
Is that fair to
sorry.
say?
That's correct.
But in this instance, you decided that you didn't even think it was necessary to use it or take it or collect it or process it, even if
Hopefully,
may
after
have a
being
possible
grilled
issue
next
down the
time,
road.
he will.
So I decided not to collect it because I did not want to influence the case incorrectly. I did not want the body fluids, because of their proximity to the body, in between the bodies, I did not want the body fluids leaking from the bodies into the stains to contaminate the sample and give us not a false positive, a wrong lead, if that, poor information.
Poor information. Okay, that's better. But
Now, you
wrong
also
lead.
mentioned that you were asked a question by Ms. Orr about the topic of gunshot residue. And when asked on direct, you said that you chose not to take gunshot residue. One reason was because of the cost. And I wanted to ask you, was there a cost benefit analysis to not taking this test?
Objection, Your Honor. I don't think you said that on direct.
He didn't say that. If you remember, he said because after about 4 hours, you probably wouldn't get it anyways. They had been out there for days. For 2 days.
I'll allow the witness to
Or a
answer.
day and a half.
That was his testimony, or so you may answer the question.
No, there's not a cost benefit analysis when processing the scene because the amount of time that had passed,
Thank you.
because dew falls in the morning and then dries
Listen.
up and that washes residue away.
Sorry.
Gunshot residue, like I said, the tests are only recommended the first 4 hours. It had
See, I heard every bit of that. Listen. Okay, Mr. Trap? Stop
Been-
trying to twist shit. I start to get, you might see Spicy Amy come out with number one. I'm already pissed off because the case isn't being shown fucking hardly anywhere. And number two, I don't care for sometimes the tactics that defense attorneys use. I understand it's their job, but it's my right to criticize or dislike it and be vocal about that too. And sometimes I just can't help myself. Okay.
well past that. There was no reasonable expectation to find gunshot
Listen,
residue
yeah.
on either of the victims because of the elements, because of the amount of time that had passed. So we decided not to expend those resources.
That's
We
what
could
he
have done it,
said.
But it would not,
Jesus.
more than likely would not have yielded anything because of the factors that I described.
Investigator Baldwin, when we spoke earlier, you talked to me about
Twist.
the classes and things that you took in order to learn how to process scenes and collect evidence. In those classes and in that preparation, did you do anything specifically on gunshot residue?
Gunshot residue is part of basic crime scene. They cover it. Gunshot residue test kits are not specific to crime scene.
Johnny.
Patrol can also do them, and occasionally they do. It's not something that you need special training for.
Now, isn't it true that collecting gunshot residue from different surfaces require different processes? Or you take different steps to collect gunshot residue off of different surfaces?
Well,
Is that correct?
duh. I mean, depending
I'm
on
not sure I understand you.
All right, if you were collecting gunshot residue from a person's hands,
Yes.
that would be a different process than if you're collecting gunshot residue from someone's shirt. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if we're collecting it from somebody's hands, in the
Kimberly.
kit, there are jars and swabs, and they're all labeled, and it comes with a little bit of acid that you put on there to help collect it. And you swab like the palm, the back of the hand on both hands. And then there's like a little sticky pad thing that you tack on their hands to try to collect all the gunshot residue. If I was collecting gunshot residue or looking for gunshot residue on an item such as a shirt, I would take the entire item and send it to the crime lab for processing.
And just like there are different processes to take an item or gunshot residue off of different surfaces, gunshot residue lasts different amounts of time on different surfaces based on how porous it is or
Oh
different
my
factors.
gosh,
with
or the
elements. Is that
conditions.
fair to say?
Yes. Duh.
That's a reasonable conclusion. If you're talking about, does it last longer on clothing versus skin? Is that what you're
Skin.
asking?
Yes, or any different surface, whether it's clothing, whether it's a table.
So
Yeah.
clothing, that would be a lab question. I would assume it would last longer, but that would be a lab question.
Well, based on your answer that would be a lab question.
Yeah.
Did you make a mention to or send these items or make a request to have any of these clothes tested? Clothes meaning the clothes that were on the male and the female that are on the scene, to have them tested for gunshot residue.
I do not.
And that decision was based on what?
Not to have them tested for gunshot residue.
Yes, sir.
It was felt at the time that it was not needed.
Okay, hold on. Let me just say
There were
something.
projectiles removed from.
First of all, they were shot at close range. Pretty positive they would have gunshot residue on their clothes if it was still remaining after setting in the elements for 2 days or almost 2 days. The hands is a different story. He is using this as his opening to say that one of them shot the gun first. I don't like it. I think it's bullshit. I understand it's his job, but let's just break this down. We've already heard gunshot residue only stays on the hands about 4 hours. Also, with the dew and being out in the elements, that adds another layer to this, right? He is making the point, trying to say, well, you didn't test their hands, so you don't know. But even if they tested, it had been much more than 4 hours, maybe 4 times 10 times longer than that, or longer. About 10, about 40 hours, I would say. It's close because it wasn't quite 2 days. The clothes, though, had there been let's say he did test and there was gunshot residue on the clothes. Okay, they were shot at close range. Literally, the experts and the crime scene analysis, the police, let me just say, the police and the prosecutors say they were executed. They were shot while they were running away and then shot at close range at the end. Wouldn't you expect that there would be gunshot residue on their clothes? I mean, I don't understand. I don't like this. It feels snaky and sneaky. You're trying to like get a point or take a jab to make your case when it's all built on bullshit. The whole foundation of your claim is bullshit.
The body.
That's all.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned when you were looking at the evidence on the scene, particularly the brass objects, well, I guess we'll call them shell casings right now, that they're all 9mm. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And although some of them had different factory or brand names, I think one was an RP and the other was a Winchester, they were all the same caliber.
That's correct.
And I think you said you had some kind of, you took like a tool markings class. Is that correct?
I did, yeah.
And in that class, you would have an idea of maybe tool marking would mean you could kind of tell that a certain projectile came from the same firearm?
No, that's a little bit of a misnomer. That's specifically for firearms and lab technicians. Tool markings I'm talking about are like pry marks. If somebody uses a screwdriver to pry a lock off of like your shed, you keep your lawnmower in, or if something is struck with a hammer, the claw end of a hammer, how it digs in. Those tool marks and impressions are what my class was in.
All right. So in this instance, you could not look at these shell casings and tell that they came from one gun or 12 different guns.
That's correct. I cannot, with my training, tell that whether they came from one gun or many guns. The only thing I can tell you is the make and the caliber.
You had made a mention when you were talking about kind of the location of the shell casings that typically a handgun will eject that shell casing 6 to 8 feet.
That's a good rule of thumb, depending on the environment, depending on the gun, the extractor, the ejector, the springs, all that. And what interferes with it. Like I mentioned, the tall grass might shorten that some. But a good rule of thumb is 6 to 8 feet.
But in your experience, because I'm assuming your experience with firearms.
I just want to say, if you were here this morning, you don't have to go back now, but I wouldn't miss the beginning of this. This cross-examination, you can see step by step this defense attorney's like plan coming together. And there were some details that I forgot to tell you guys earlier that came out during them showing the pictures to the jury. So if you listened earlier and you do want to follow along with every detail, you might want to rewind. There was some kind of important stuff discussed, but yeah, now we're just listening to the cross-examination, and he's trying to create reasonable doubt, right, about the evidence collected. And he's doing it in a little bit of a sneaky way because this officer, as you might have noticed, this investigator, he's not giving us the results from lab tests. He's not telling us there was blood at the scene. He's not telling us it was blood in the car. He's not telling us any of that. He's not going to tell you about the markings on the shells, the shell casings, because that's not his job. His job is to gather it all, document it, that kind of stuff. The lab person has to come on the stand and tell you, or an expert of some kind, right? So this guy is trying to make it look like, well, I mean, you can't say that it was fired from the same weapon for sure, right? Well, no, because that's not my job. I would never say that anyways. I'm not here to testify about the markings on the shell casings, but there's just little things you can see. He's just kind of weaseling his way. And I don't like that. I get it. He's doing his job, but he's doing it in a weaselly way, in my opinion.
Every firearm,
That's all.
you don't really know what
Right,
a
he's
firearm's
not a
going to do until you
ballistics
fire. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, all of them are unique. All of them have different characteristics. Like I mentioned, the extractor, the ejector, the springs, how worn it is. All of that affects it.
And you didn't find any firearms on the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct. There were no firearms located.
Now, when you left the scene, prior to making it back to the station, you went to another location. Isn't that correct?
Are you talking about Burlington?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we did go to Burlington.
And you processed the scene over there too. Isn't that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. And may I be heard?
Outside the presence of the jury.
Yes, please.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Outside of the presence of the
Please
jury.
leave your notebooks in your chairs. Everybody else remain seated. Please remember all my rules. I'll have you back here in just a minute.
Okay, I didn't hear this part. Let's see what's going on. Nervous. They have to turn the camera so we don't see the jury. Let me try to skip forward.
Jury. It's going to require me to give the court a little bit of background about where Mr. Trapp is headed. So on the afternoon of
God.
September 18th, right around the same time the bodies were located, law enforcement got a tip that Miss Woods was potentially with an individual who was located at an apartment in Burlington. Officers went to that apartment. They interviewed 4 young men who were there. They brought them to the sheriff's office and interviewed them. All 4 young men were eliminated from having anything to do with this case. They were out of the area all weekend while this occurred. There was a firearm seized from one of them. It was test fired by the sheriff's office. That evidence was sent with the other ballistics evidence, and it was not a match to the shell casings at the scene. I think that going down this road has the potential to completely mislead the jury, especially considering that the defense's approach to this case is that Mr. Ross was there and he shot Devin. So they haven't made any suggestion that there was anybody else present.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Talk about slimy. Why are you even bringing up Burlington? Which, if you're not in North Carolina, Burlington is like maybe an hour from Raleigh. And there's a lot of great shopping there. It's another big city. It's like lots of traffic, just like Raleigh, Durham, which is near this area. This is kind of off the outskirts of that. Why even bring up Burlington? So there was a tip. Jordan was with 4 kids. These kids they go and pick them up. They do take a firearm from one of them. It is not a match for the shell casings. And 4 kids proved they were out of town the entire weekend. So why even bring it up? It is absolutely misleading the jury. And let's see what the judge does, because I don't like this.
At this scene. And I
Let's
think,
see.
investigators follow leads in their
Same,
cases, but this is
J13.
a rabbit hole that I don't think we need to go down in front of the jury.
All right.
I want him to have a
Let
good
me, hear
defense,
from you.
not a
Thank you, Judge.
dishonest,
Just like
slimy
any
one.
officer who's involved in an investigation, I'll always ask, well, did you do any further investigation related to this? And that is the case. as well, according to the report from Mr. Baldwin, he said that before he even went back and turned in the evidence that he collected off of Buckhorn, he then went to Burlington and processed the scene there in relation to this case and collected a firearm in relation to this case, and then had that firearm test fired. And it's going to say that it isn't a match. So I don't think it is a rabbit hole. I just want to make sure we're being thorough about the investigation and what did apply and what didn't apply. We just talked about how law enforcement said, well, they didn't test these blood patterns here, that was their prerogative, but they did decide to collect this firearm and test fire it. And because it is directly related to this case and this investigation, it is immediately after he left this crime scene. I think it is relevant. It's not a rabbit hole. It's what they.
So how is it relevant? How does it make a fact in this case more likely than not? That's the test of relevancy.
Okay, it's relevant because we're talking about this investigation. Right now, we're almost at the bottom here, and we're trying to make our way up to the top and how they made it to decide that they wanted to charge Issiah Ross and how they wanted to decide that he may have been involved in this aspect or that aspect. This actually shows that they did do investigation, that they went beyond just looking at this individual, but multiple individuals, and that they excluded this individual by doing testing. And if there is evidence that is relevant to show one way or another, I think it is important. And it's something that this person participated in. And just because an individual does eliminate someone from whatever their idea is at that point, it's still relevant to how they got it. And that's all I'm trying to get at. It's not misleading at all, because we're going to come back to this thing. Well, yes, we test fired it, which is what we do with all of our evidence. There's going to be the evidence of the roof that we talked about earlier, and it's going to say that.
Oh my God. Okay. Tess, I'm so glad we're streaming it too. I wish that the reason that no one was really here watching was because a million other channels were watching it. I'm so sad that it's not really being seen and talked about, but also that's a good reason to talk about it, even with just us. You know what I mean? So I'm really happy that we're doing it too. Tomorrow, the next day of court, is about 5 hours long. I think we'll break that up between Saturday and Sunday might be the best way. I'm not sure. The medical examiner is going to be one of the next witnesses, so it'll be a very interesting testimony. But yeah, and then today they didn't really have court, so we'll be caught up once we get through that. So anyway, I'm glad we're doing it. That's the plan. This weekend we'll catch up with Thursday's court. See, the only reason Wednesday was only this long, it was half a day. So then we have 2 more parts, a 3-hour and a 2-hour for Thursday. And then Friday, today, they didn't have court due to a family emergency. I haven't even caught all the way up with that. So here we go.
No one's DNA was connected to it. Eventually, when the person from the crime lab comes, does that mean that that's not relevant just because it came up with no?
It's not useful at all. It's not helpful at all.
To it? I don't think so. That's just part of the process on how they got to these decisions.
There's 2 problems with that. The first problem is that you're bringing other individuals into this case that it appears that there's no evidence connecting them to this particular crime. And as you know, in order for your client to sort of propose that there are other people involved, or there's some sort of alibi, or that they were involved in it, you have to have more than mere speculation to even introduce evidence of that. There's some pretty solid case law that says you cannot introduce the names of anybody else or suggest anybody else was involved merely for the purpose of speculation.
Correct.
It has to be more than just speculation that somebody else may have been connected or involved in this crime. It sounds like from what you're representing to me and the state is representing that there's no evidence that these individuals who were spoken to in Burlington, that there's any connection to this, that there's any evidence that suggests they're connected to this, and that in fact all of the evidence suggests the absolute opposite, that these individuals were not involved in this crime, and that there's no evidence that connects them to that. And you are not seeking through this witness, it sounds like, to introduce any evidence that would connect them to this crime. Your proffer of evidence is, I want to ask questions that show these people are not connected to the crime.
No, what my goal was to just show that the steps of this investigation. So if they went down a street and went down 100 yards, I'm just saying that I know that there was at least 10 or 20 yards that haven't been discussed. Did you do anything else with this case? And the answer would be yes. I went and I collected evidence from Burlington, North Carolina. And after
I appreciate being thorough. I think that's a good thing. But I think it's misleading in this instance. And if there's case law that, you don't bring people in merely due to speculation, and it would introduce 4 new individuals into this for them to be, connected to something that's not something they probably want to be connected to. I also think you have to weigh that out.
Looking at this, it was determined that this firearm wasn't connected to the case.
Oh
That's
my
as far as
God,
we
what's the
go.
judge
I just
gonna
noticed
do?
in my notes and in his report, there was something that wasn't discussed that he collected, and that was tested for this case that was sent to the crime lab. I'm not trying to implicate that anyone in Burlington committed a crime.
He wants to show they're messy and they don't have a good grasp on the investigation. They didn't test the blood, but they did take a gun that wasn't relevant at all. That's his point. And he's going to go, okay, so you did take a gun that had nothing to do with this and test that. But the blood that was right in between, or the red stain that appeared to be blood right in between the two victims, you didn't test that. I think that's my opinion where we're going. Okay, let me stop talking. I got to give commentary though. Okay. That's what allows me to be able to restream this. So
So I'm going to hold and find that under relevancy standard, I will find that probative
Try to
value of the evidence
discredit
is not
them.
substantially
Yep.
or is substantially outweighed by its potential confusion to the jury in this particular case. There is the possibility that this evidence would be argued or attempt to be linked to individuals. There is no evidence by proffers on both sides that these individuals have any connection to this case, that there's any evidence that connects them to this case, that in fact all of the evidence connected with this investigation into these four individuals show the absolute opposite. So it is not relevant in that sense. It cannot be admitted or even argued that these four individuals had any involvement in this case. That goes against all the case law regarding suggesting other people are involved or suggesting that the defendant is in fact not the person. As you know, the evidence has to show, one, that they're involved in the case, and number two, that it exculpates the defendant from any possible involvement or involvement at all. You proffered no evidence that fits either of those particular prongs, so it's not relevant there. That, though, talking about it could raise that particular confusion, and that substantially outweighs any probative value, which from what I understand,
It outweighs the, yeah.
Mr. Trapp is being argued. You want to show that the sheriff's department did a thorough and complete investigation.
No.
What probative value you offered it for. And so
No,
I don't know.
he doesn't. He's not being honest. He don't care about them doing a
Again,
thorough
sort of
investigation.
character, I guess, or job performance, but I don't find that relevancy. I find that relevancy for that evidence is substantially outweighed.
He wants to show that they're doing shit they shouldn't do and not doing what they should. Come on.
Mr. Trapp, is there another reason you wanted to offer this that I should consider its probative value in this case?
He wants. Yeah, his whole goal is to show the sheriff's department did their job. That would be defending his client in the best way. Get real. Manipulation.
Your Honor, I will just say to the court that if there are components of this case that were tested and used and compared, because it's my understanding that this gun was test fired and that those test fires were then compared to the shell casings that were found at the crime scene. And so if we get to that point, if the person from the crime lab says that we did determine that these shell casings were all the same and that they did not compare to the shell casings from this test firing, that would then relate back to what this officer did on that day. And that's all I'm bringing up. Like it was part of the case. It was part of the investigation as a
Dude,
exclusionary measure.
you should have been honest
Your proffer
about the
testimony
point you wanted to make, in
is
my
that
opinion.
based on what you have read from the discovery,
Mhm.
is that if, and I don't know that the state would call this person, if they were to call a firearms expert,
Mhm.
that firearms expert, according to what you've told me, is going to say the test fire from the gun recovered in Burlington does not, in fact, match the shell casings that were recovered from the scene of this murder. Am I misunderstanding? Or
That is absolutely correct. But I think
so the probative value of entering evidence that they collected a gun that did not match what was found at the scene of the murder, how is that probative on any material fact?
well,
Be
I
honest.
know that on the day that these bodies were found, there was information given to a family member, one of the victims, that they believed that she was at this or in this orange Camaro. And so law enforcement sent several individuals to go pick up people and search the house and do whatever else. And what was found was a firearm, and they excluded that firearm. And then they found other information that may have said, well, this person could have been there, and that person could have been there. But I just know that this individual, the individual who's on the witness stand, left the crime scene and went and collected items for this investigation. And that's why I thought it was relevant, because he was doing it for this investigation. And just because evidence shows that it is involved or isn't involved doesn't mean that we can't talk about it in court. I thought the idea is because they did investigate, because they did look into it and find whether it was connected or not, would be important to talk about his involvement in this case. And that's my idea.
I didn't hear you, Mr. Trapp, but there's tons of evidence we do not admit all the time in cases
Mhm.
that officers investigate or officers gather. Could be related to your defendant, could be related to everything. Any evidence that has to come in has to meet all of the requirements of evidence. The least is it has to be relevant. And the only relevancy you've offered to me so far is that you want to show that this officer did other things that by your own proffer did not lead to the defendant or another suspect. And as such, they are not.
Your Honor, I will strike it. This
No,
isn't.
no, I
this-
just want to make sure you got everything on the record.
Yes.
I am going to sustain the objection. I will note the defense's exception to my ruling.
Yes, Judge.
All right, let's go ahead and bring our folks back in.
Why in the world didn't the defense just say, listen, I just wanted to point out that they were thorough in some ways and not thorough in others. Why not say that? Beyond, because that seemed to be what it was about. And because he couldn't be truthful and wanted to be slimy and snaky about it, oh, I wanted to show they did a thorough job. Yeah, sure the hell you did. That is why you weren't allowed to bring it in my opinion. Mr. Trapp, I think you're going to be on my list by the end of this. I'm going to go ahead and write it down now. He's made the list. That's it. You're on the shit list, sir. No, I'm just kidding. Good God Almighty. Woo. I took y'all to the grocery store with me, and now we're home. I'm making chili tonight, so feel free to stop by. Oh, love you back, Boho Hobo. I want some chili with some sour cream and cheese in it. Yum. You're
All
on the
right, we've got
spicy
everybody back
list.
with us. I will sustain the
Good.
state's objection. All right, Mr. Trapp, the witness is.
Okay, here
Thank
we
you,
go.
Judge. Investigator Baldwin, you mentioned that you had a chance to process this white GMC Terrain. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you talked about taking pictures on the exterior and then taking pictures on the interior.
That's correct.
And then afterwards, you talked about, I guess, looking for things with the naked eye, like maybe red stains or red streaks, and then going in more detail and spraying with luminol. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when you were doing your investigation on the outside of the car, do you recall where, if any, you saw any red streaks?
Yeah, I believe it's notated on the evidence packs. The red streak was on the right front wheel rim. It would be on the rim that was in the photo.
And so you use the word streak and not streak, so singular.
We're talking about the rim, or are we
Yes.
talking about everything?
The rim.
The rim, yeah, I believe it was one in the photo.
Okay. And after kind of looking at things, because obviously our eyes can't see everything, so that's why we use other items to make it more evident. When you were spraying the car with luminol, did you spray the outside of the car?
Yeah, we would have sprayed the outside of the car to check to see if we missed anything.
Okay. And
I believe that's correct.
do you recall from your report if that assisted in you seeing more than you would have seen with the naked eye?
On the outside, no, I don't recall.
Okay.
I recall more of the inside.
And then you mentioned that when you sprayed on the inside, that you noticed something in the roof panel of the car, correct?
That's correct. The interior roof lining around the dome light.
Did you notice any other spots in the car that illuminated when you sprayed luminol inside the car?
Without looking at photographs, I don't recall that.
And after you kind of noticed that, what you described as a handprint with the luminol, that's what encouraged you to cut out that piece and then send that to the lab. Is that right?
So when I noticed when we discovered the handprint, then we tried to photograph it. It did not work out because it was not visible to the naked eye and the luminol had dimmed. Instead of trying to determine how to swab it, and swabbing cloth is difficult because it's woven and fibers can block things. In that case, we generally take the item. So that's why we cut it out.
And you mentioned that in addition to luminol illuminating with blood because of the iron that's in the blood, right? That it may also light up or glow if it reacts to other items. Is that right?
That's correct. The iron in the blood is not the only thing that it reacts to.
And so what you could have seen in the car, outside of the car, could have been a number of things, not just the presence of blood. And that's what the lab would determine. Is that right?
When the item's sent, yes, the lab would process it based on what we requested. They'd process it for DNA. The luminol would light up, like I said, when we went over it. Some kinds of moss cleaning products, things like that. It generally has moss, yes. Some kinds of moss, certain cleaning products, it does respond to other things. Generally, it's dimmer or more white and less blue, but it does respond to other things.
Nothing further this time, Judge.
All right, can you redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Investigator Baldwin, this may sound like a silly question, but are you familiar with firearms?
Yes.
And can you describe your familiarity with firearms?
So we carry firearms at the sheriff's office. I've been a certified deputy since 2011. In that time, I've also been on the SWAT team and the sniper team. So I'm very familiar with firearms, how they work, how they operate.
So the items that we previously discussed that were collected from the crime scene, based on your experience, do you believe those items to be shell casings?
I do.
And based on your observation of those items, what characteristics could you tell about them?
So I can tell, looking at them, they appear to be brass casings. They're brass colored. Brass is a common material for that. And then they're made by RP. That's a manufacturer for most of them. And then they were made by Winchester. There are a couple that were made by a different manufacturer. They're all the same caliber, which means they can all be fired by the same gun or different guns, but they're all 9mm, so they're all the exact same size.
And is the caliber indicated anywhere on the casing?
It is. So when you look at a bullet, I'm sure we're familiar with the head stamp on the end of it around the primer. It generally, most of them, not all, but most of them have the maker and the caliber on it. And in this case, it either had RP 9mm Luger or Win, WIN, short for Winchester, 9mm.
I'm going to be jumping around just a little bit, so I apologize, but returning to the two areas of dark staining between the bodies of Devin and Lyric. You mentioned on
Okay.
cross-examination that there was a potential for contamination from other bodily fluids.
That's correct.
Is there any other reason why you didn't swab or collect any gravel or dirt from those areas?
Other than contamination, it just didn't seem appropriate.
How about the proximity to the bodies?
They're very close to the bodies with the wounds.
Going back to
Let me hear
also
that again.
between the bodies of Devin and Lyric. You mentioned on cross-examination that there was a potential for contamination from other bodily fluids.
That's correct.
Is there any other reason why you didn't swab or collect any gravel or dirt from those areas?
Other than contamination, it just didn't seem appropriate.
How about the proximity to the bodies?
They're very close to the bodies with the wounds.
Going back to also the vape pen and the cigarette butt.
Yes,
And I think you also mentioned a chip clip.
orange chip clip. That's correct.
Why did you mark those items?
At the time coming down the hill, there was a lot of speculation that they could be involved, so I marked them. Like I said, I process the scenes, I make that determination, but there were speculation from officers on scene they could be. So we took them, then determined they're trash. They're things people disposed of on the side of the road, and they didn't need to be processed for this case.
And about
almost
how far
done.
distance-wise, if you recall, were those items from that first set of shell casings that you marked with numbers 1, 2, and 3?
Hey, Wolfie.
The shell casings were a distance up the access road. From the photos, you could see where the crime scene tape was and how close they were to the bodies. The vape pen and the cigarette butt were, if I recall correctly, immediately beside the road, like very close to the white line. And then the chip clip was
This whole
off the
scene-
access road a short distance up.
This entire crime scene was actually pretty close to the road, and it's like a highway. It's like a 2-lane highway, though. Like there's some houses and some farms and stuff, but it's not super populated. But there's like this little turnoff, this little gravel turnoff that eventually turns into a trail. And I mean, it was close. You could, like I said, you could stand on the neighbor's porch and see the cross put up at the memorial, which was right at the scene. Like you could view it from there. So it wasn't like hidden or out of the way or super far from the road where these items were found, because these were found right next to the road. But still, I mean, I would think it's possible they're relevant too, especially since you're looking for a suspect and the vape and the cigarette or whatever is going to have DNA on it. Of course. Ooh, let me make sure to grab that. That makes sense to me. Hey, Brandy.
Mr. Trapp asked you a little bit about a shell casing
Oh,
that was
okay, neat.
located on the following day. Do you
That's
recall?
correct. Yeah.
Were you actually present for the collection of that item?
For that one, no.
Do you recall who collected that item?
Should be Walter Vila, Investigator Walter Vila.
And do you recall how or if or how you received that item from Investigator Vila?
So in a bag, it's an evidence bag that we issue. Before the crime lab changed their standards, it wasn't a problem. Then they said you have to have the 9x5 envelopes. So originally it was in a very small paper bag, like a 3x5, about an index card size, because it's a very small item. I had to repackage it because of their standards.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
She's just trying to wrap up the loose ends that the defense attorney created. Opinion, but
Investigator Baldwin, I'll approach with what I've marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 75 and ask you if you recognize this item.
Yeah, this is our item 38. It's one brass colored 9mm shell casing.
And what's indicated on the packaging for that? Well, let me ask you first. Did you package this particular envelope?
So this one I sealed, yes.
And is that the same shell casing that you received from Investigator Vila?
Yeah, it would be the same shell casing in that case.
And has this item gone anywhere besides your office?
Yeah, so the sticker on the front indicates that it went to the crime lab, and the sticker on the back also indicates it went to the crime lab a second time. It was resubmitted. That's what the white sticker is.
Sorry, my
and
headphone
then
was messed
it
up.
went to their various techs where they opened it and tested it and then resealed it.
And is
And
that in the same condition that you received it back from the lab?
the last time, yes, it is.
Thank you.
Well, tomorrow we got 6 hours to go through.
Yeah, I think that's all the redirect that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Trapp, recross?
oh man.
Nothing on recross.
He gets a recross?
Sure, you missed it down.
Are you kidding me? Oh Jesus! Thank God he didn't do it. But what?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're a little bit early this evening, but before we go ahead and start another witness,
dropped
we're
my
going
pen.
to stop here this evening so I can get you out as close to 5 as I can. So I'm once again releasing you back out to your homes and families. So let me go over the rules so everybody remembers them. Number 1, you can all get together tonight. Just remember, you just can't talk about this case with each other.
My chili
Number
pepper
2,
can.
you cannot talk to anybody else. Again, I know your family, your friends, everybody's going to know what's going on. And you just can tell them again, remember, you're on this jury for a murder case and you'll be able to talk to them about it after the case is done. Number 3, do not allow anybody to talk to you or around you about this particular case.
Well,
Number
you guys,
4, the avoidance of all
right.
encyclopedias this evening. All right.
tomorrow,
Remember, no independent
Encyclopedias.
investigation of any kind to talk to you or around you about this particular case. Which leads to number 4, the avoidance of all encyclopedias this evening. All right?
okay.
Uh,
All right, guys. So that's it for today. But we have a lot more. And geez, it booted me when I booted that. We have a lot more. You know, we got 6 hours to catch up on before Monday. Maybe 5.5. So I don't know how we're gonna do it. Just if you're interested, have your notifications on. I might cover something else while we're doing it. If there's something I want to talk about, there's a playlist I created so you can make sure you don't miss any part of it if you're following this. And yeah, I want to go get some vapes tomorrow, so I have to go to the vape store. So I don't know what time, but as soon as I have an idea, I'll post it up so you guys will know. And yeah, thank you so much. You know, Tess says, please let Allie know how much we appreciate her taking the time on these hard and less known cases. Her heart is at, oh, show yours by giving some love on that like button. And I agree with Tess. Please leave a like on this video. You know, like I said, there's not a lot of interest in this. It's something I'm personally interested in, and each one of you that is also interested or taking your time to try to listen, thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Oh, Tess, my brain is gone too. You went yesterday. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Listen, there was something with Rebecca Park that I wanted to talk about, and then, you know, this happened, that happened, so much happening with the freaking car being taken and the kids and stuff. I don't remember what it was. So I have to go searching around for that. And yeah, anything else I want to talk about, we will. If you missed my live from yesterday, go watch it. It is nuts. It is crazy, and it's important also to talk about. So anyways, thank you guys for being here. Maybe if I go live besides this, it'll be on my second channel, because I really want to get that one up and going and able to do to get monetized and stuff. And I want to be able to talk about stuff that's not so serious and just laugh and be silly. So I'm hoping that I'll have it in me to find something I want to talk about over there in the coming days. If you're not subscribed, I'm gonna drop the link. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you to the mods, man, for real. Look, I usually don't stream trials, but anytime I watch them with my friends, I always think about like this is hard on the mods. Like it's a lot. It's like an all day thing, and I appreciate you. Thank you. You don't have to be here either. Maybe you're doing something or you're not, interested in it or whatever for any reason. Just know you don't have to be here, but since you are, I really appreciate it. And thank you to you guys who are here. It means a lot to me. All right, guys. I'll see you later. Have a good night. Bye. I don't like that outro for this right now. So I'm going to put my short outro back. Boom. There we go. Bye, guys.